I never imagined my undercover journey as a cleaner would lead to a heartbreaking twist. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The moment the walls seemed to close in on me. The air thickened with dread. My hands trembled, and my heart raced, echoing in the silence of the dimly lit room. I was just a regular person, trying to make ends meet. After the divorce, life became a blur of bills and loneliness. I had a family to care for, a daughter named Lily who deserved better. She needed a stable home, a loving place to come back to. But under the weight of debt, my dreams slipped through my fingers like sand. That day started like any other. The sun barely peeked through the grimy windows as I gathered my supplies: old rags, a squeaky mop, a bucket with gnarled edges. It smelled faintly of citrus, but nothing could mask the lingering scent of despair. I was on a job like no other, in a mansion where whispers of secrets lingered like shadows. As I scrubbed the floors, I noticed odd things. Broken mirrors, like jigsaw pieces scattered across the room, reflecting fragments of what was. A family photo, dust-covered, displaying smiles that seemed far too perfect. And there was an unsettling stillness, as if the house held its breath, waiting. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand tall. Someone was watching. I shrugged it off, chalking it up to my imagination. I was just the cleaner, invisible in the grand scheme. But in the corners of my mind, curiosity grew. I stumbled upon a locked door. Its handle glimmered with an air of foreboding. My heart thudded loudly against my ribcage. Questions swirled in my mind: what lay behind that door? Every instinct screamed at me to walk away. But the thrill of the unknown pulled me in. I glanced over my shoulder. An empty hallway. No one to witness my reckless curiosity. I reached for the handle, but a sudden noise made me freeze. Footsteps drew near, echoing down the corridor like a warning bell. My breath hitched in my throat. I ducked behind a large, ornate column as fear washed over me like icy water. The footsteps continued, each tap sending a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I peered out just in time to see a figure dressed in black glide past, their eyes scanning the area. The weight of their gaze sent a chill through me. Who were they? What were they hiding? I clenched my jaw, wrestling with dread. My life had become a complex web of challenges, but this felt different. This felt dangerous. As the figure disappeared around a corner, I took one last desperate glance at the strange door. It beckoned me like a forbidden treasure, and then I made a choice. I took a deep breath, heart hammering in my chest, and moved toward the door. The weight of secrets hung thick in the air. I turned the handle. It creaked open just as I heard the footsteps approaching again, louder this time. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment I pushed the door open, I was engulfed in darkness. An unsettling shiver ran down my spine, like the cold breath of a ghost brushing past me. I hesitated at the threshold, fear and curiosity warring within me. The dim light spilling from the hallway barely illuminated the room beyond, revealing an overwhelming sense of abandonment. Dust danced in the air like forgotten dreams, and the musty scent of old wood and secrets hung heavily. As my eyes adjusted, I noticed the remnants of what had once been a study: a grand desk cluttered with yellowed papers, books lined haphazardly on shelves, and the remnants of what seemed to be a shattered life. On the wall hung a painting of a family, their faces frozen in a moment of joy, but now it felt like a mockery of my own dwindling happiness. A flicker of longing stirred within me, a reminder of what I once held dear. But before I could steady myself, the door creaked sharply behind me, sending waves of panic crashing over my thoughts. I whirled around, my heart in my throat, the footsteps outside clamoring louder. The figure was near. With a surge of urgency, I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath as they approached. Peeking out, I glimpsed the figure, a woman, her long hair cascading like a dark waterfall, wearing an expression of acute distress. My heart pounded loudly, and for a moment, I thought of Lily, how she would react if she knew I'd put myself in such danger. But this was no ordinary danger. There was an intensity in the air, a pulse of urgency that felt oddly familiar. The woman paused just outside the door, her breath quickening, and I could see the glint of hope in her eyes as she scanned the room. It was an expression I recognized all too well, the desperate need for escape. Before I could process what to do, she slipped inside, shutting the door softly behind her. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, tinged with both fear and determination. I hesitated, unsure of my own identity in this moment. "I wasn't meant to be here. I am just the cleaner," I managed, sensing her apprehension flickering like a flame. Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and something else, relief. "Thank God," she breathed. I thought I was alone. Without understanding why, I could feel a connection bloom between us, two souls stranded in a world that seemed intent on breaking us. "What are you running from?" I asked, the gravity of our shared predicament unfurling in the stillness. She looked around, the shadows pooling in her eyes, and I could sense a tide of heartbreak beneath her facade. "My husband, he's dangerous. He's looking for me." The raw fear in her voice struck a chord within me, igniting a protective instinct I hadn't felt in years. "Why here?" I pressed, urgency rippling through my blood. "Why this house? I thought hidden places would keep me safe, but I was wrong." "He has connections everywhere," she replied, her voice trembling. "I thought if I stayed off the grid, I could find a way out. But now it's worse than I imagined." My mind spiraled as I contemplated the weight of her truth. My own struggles seemed trivial compared to what she was facing. "We have to leave," I said, already contemplating the next steps like a person drowning, grasping at the last vestige of hope. Before she could respond, muffled voices drifted through the walls. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by raised voices, anger and urgency vibrating through the very foundation of the house. In that moment, the gravity of our situation settled thickly between us. I turned to the woman, whose name I still didn't know, fear and determination mirrored in her expression. "We need to hide," I urged. "Quick!" As we crouched behind a desk, I suddenly realized how vulnerable we were, ensnared in a world that felt swallowed by darkness. I stole a glance at her, flicker of courage illuminating her features. In that breathless silence, as the voices drew near, I felt an unexpected bond forming between us, two scared souls rooting for survival amidst chaos. And just as the door rattled under the weight of an impending storm, I realized that whatever lay ahead, we were no longer alone. The walls around us might close in, but perhaps, just perhaps, depending on each other, could lead to a flicker of hope in this terrifying unraveling. Then a loud crash reverberated through the hallway. The door burst open, revealing a tall figure in shadow, eyes glimmering with menace, and just as quickly, my heart sank, the realization dawning like a heart-wrenching truth. This terrifying moment was only the beginning. The walls were drawing closer, and the danger was only just beginning to reveal its true face. The room erupted into chaos as the shadowed figure barged in, the heavy wooden door splintering against the wall. The woman beside me gasped, her trembling form pressing closer, as if seeking solace in the shared warmth of our fear. I could hardly breathe, our breaths synchronized in a desperate rhythm, our gazes fixed on the intruder, whose smirk spoke of malice and intent. "Well, what do we have here?" His voice was smooth, almost mocking, as it slithered through the air like smoke. A couple of lost lambs hiding in the dark? He took a step closer, the dim light spilling onto his features, revealing sharp lines and a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Please," I whispered, desperation clawing at my throat. "We mean no harm." My heart raced, pounding in my ears, each beat urging me to protect this fragile stranger beside me. His laughter echoed through the confines of the study, shattering the stillness. "No harm. You're trespassing in my house. That makes it rather difficult for me to believe you." The woman clutched my arm tighter, offering me a silent plea for solidarity as I drew a cautious breath, weighing my options. I had no plan, no real sense of escape, yet the flicker of courage ignited by her presence urged me forward. "We just want to leave. Please." "Leave? Leaving isn't on the agenda for you two." He stepped forward, menacing in his approach, and I instinctively moved to shield her. "I can't let you go wandering out there with tales of my little hideaway." The air thickened with tension, and each second seemed to stretch indefinitely as fear wrapped itself around me like a cold embrace. I stole a glance at the woman, her eyes wide with terror, but somehow resolute, grasping at the fragments of courage I didn't know she possessed. It sparked something within me, a determination to fight even when the odds appeared insurmountable. The intruder leaned against the desk, regarding us with an unsettling calm. "You do know what I am capable of, don't you?" There was a chilling gleam in his dark eyes, as he searched our faces for signs of vulnerability, like a predator drawing upon the instinctual fear of its prey. "Just leave us alone," I managed to reply, trying to inject as much strength into my words as possible, hoping to veil the quiver of apprehension beneath. He chuckled softly, the sound making my skin crawl. "Alone? No, I think not. You've stumbled upon something far too interesting for me to just let go." In that moment, the air around us shifted, thickening with unspoken threats. I could feel my muscles tense, the instinct to flee warring against the necessity to stand firm. The shadows in the corner of the room seemed to deepen, as he turned his attention back to the woman. "And you," he said, his tone shifting to a predatory whisper. "How long do you think you could hide?" "Long enough," she whispered, bravely stepping forward, her voice strong despite the fear flickering in her eyes. "I won't let you control me any longer." For an instant, surprise flickered across his face, and I seized the moment to shift my stance as well. "We will tell the police everything," I asserted, though doubt gnawed at my insides. "They'll come looking for us." The threat hung in the air, and the room grew dangerously silent. Yet the facade of confidence melted from his features, revealing a flash of uncertainty, like a mirage shattering under scrutiny. "Police?" he echoed, and suddenly his gaze burned with a ferocity that made the hair on my neck stand on end. "Oh, how sweet. You really believe you'll see the outside world again?" The moment stretched taut like a pulled bowstring, and before I could think, I lunged forward, pushing the desk hard enough to topple it over and create a barrier. The sound was deafening, and the fleeting moment of chaos momentarily caught the intruder off guard. "Go!" I yelled to the woman, urgency punctuating each syllable as I grabbed her hand, pulling her along. Together, we raced toward the back exit, my heart racing with both fear and an undeniable flicker of hope. But as we stumbled through the doorway, the sudden sound of shattering glass echoed behind us, followed by the unmistakable thud of footsteps pursuing. The world outside might have offered a glimpse of freedom, but we first had to outrun the darkness that threatened to consume us. As we sprinted into the fading light of the evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that our escape wasn't guaranteed. We were two frightened souls tearing through the unknown, but the peril that shadowed us was not just the man behind. "Where do we go now?" she panted, glancing back at the confines we were fleeing. "To the shelter," I breathed out the words, but doubt gnawed at my insides. I had no idea if we would even make it there. Then it hit me like a bolt from the blue, the realization that I had left behind my cleaning supplies, laden with the most embarrassing details of my own life in plain sight, a list of vulnerabilities he could exploit. As we dashed down the overgrown path leading away from the house, a sudden chill sealed our fates. I could feel the weight of the secrets I carried. In this moment, they were the only thing worse than the monster pursuing us. The alarming question hung in the air, a haunting echo I couldn't shake. Would he find me first, or would I have to face the truth of my own past before I could even think of escaping? The wind whipped around us as we sprinted down the narrow trail, the fading daylight casting elongated shadows over our flight. Each footfall echoed with fear and uncertainty, a drumbeat of dread that urged us onward. The weight of what I had left behind pressed against my chest, threatening to choke off the breath I needed to keep moving. "Did you see where we were headed?" she gasped, glancing back as we darted through tangled underbrush. Branches clawing at us like the man's mocking laughter still echoed in my ears. "Somewhere safe," I murmured, though the words felt hollow, flitting away like the fading daylight. I could barely hold on to the thin social fabric that connected my past to the present, and now it all threatened to unravel. The cleaning supplies I had left behind contained more than just mops and dustpans. They held a cryptic key to my life, an account of every embarrassing mistake, every hidden imperfection that I had masked with the guise of anonymity. The woman beside me, her name still eluded me. Just as her eyes betrayed her fear was a spark of light in the encroaching darkness, urging me to push forward. We stumbled onto a dirt road, the gravel crunching beneath our hurried steps. What I wouldn't give to find a car or a passerby, someone who could whisk us away from this nightmare. But the road remained hauntingly empty. A sudden sound broke the stillness, a distant rustle, footsteps echoing our own, but I couldn't bring myself to look back. Instead, I squeezed her hand tighter, desperate for assurance, and she squeezed back in response, fierce and grounding. In that brief exchange of courage, I felt a flicker of hope, and I clung to it like a lifeline, as fleeting as it might prove to be. "Tell me what happened," she panted, her breath coming in ragged gasps as we paused by an old wooden fence. My heart raced, caught between the instinct to protect her and the overwhelming urge to unburden myself. The urge to confide in her surged up, fueled by our perilous escape. "How did you end up in that house?" she pressed, though I sensed the fear in her eyes was less about the question and more about the man behind us. "I was just trying to make some extra money," I said, trying to sound nonchalant, though a part of me knew that my fragility was transparent against the backdrop of our peril. "There was an ad online for cleaning, you know. Just a bit of housework, nothing serious." "A cleaning job?" She raised an eyebrow, disbelief woven into her tone. The questions were there, unsaid, woven deep into the fabric of the air between us. "And it led you to him?" "He wasn't what I thought he would be," I stammered, and when I found out my voice dropped. If I told her the full truth, would it scare her away? Would it unveil me in a way that left her vulnerable in my wake? "I just wanted to escape my past," I finished, the confession almost a whisper. "How could I ever escape mine?" she said suddenly, her voice quivering, raw and open. "When Hugh Hen, he found me years ago, I thought it was the end, but I promised myself I would never let someone like him control me again." The confession slid between us, a fragile thread that pulled us closer in that moment of shared anguish. She straightened her spine, fire igniting in her determined gaze. I could read the resolve in her eyes, each flicker a reminder that we were in this together. As fear and desperation threatened to engulf me, her passion became a beacon of courage, a lifeline tethering us both to what remained outside this suffocating darkness. Suddenly, a shadow flitted across the road, followed by the familiar sound of crunching gravel. My heart dropped, and I instinctively pulled her toward the trees lining the path. Just as we ducked behind a thick trunk, we held our breaths, listening intently. Footsteps grew louder, each thud an ominous reminder of the danger stalking us. What if he finds us?" she whispered, her face pale with terror. "Then we fight," I replied, my voice more confident than I felt. We can't let history repeat itself. We have to stand together. But as we crouched there, a sudden thought struck me with icy clarity. What if the reality I had left behind was worse than the shadow pursuing us? The memories wrapped tightly around my past, a creeping dread unfurling like ivy against the walls of my mind. And then, just as the footsteps halted, a chilling realization washed over me. Deep in my cleaning supplies, there was a specific document. I had hidden details about my past, about my former life in another city, buried secrets I had been trying to escape. Before I could stop myself, I whispered the words that could seal my fate. What if he knows about me? What if he has something that ties me to that life? Then there was silence, weighing heavy in the air. The footsteps hadn't receded. They were just outside our hiding place, the shadow of the intruder looming ever closer, the darkness creeping back as my heart raced with uncertainty. Would my hidden truths come to light just as the world began to close in around us? Would I finally have to face the consequences of my past, or would we both pay the price? The shadows flickered around us as the dark figure lingered too close for comfort, the night closing in with breathtaking despair. As the silence stretched, every heartbeat echoed in my ears, drowning out the sounds of the night. The world around us felt suspended, a fragile bubble where time held its breath. The figure loomed just beyond our hiding spot, the air thick with tension and fear. I could nearly feel their presence, a suffocating weight pressing against my chest. "I think he knows we're here," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. I could feel the tremor in her grip, and I tightened my hand around hers, our connection spilling warmth into the cold, dark reality we faced. "Stay quiet," I urged. "If we're lucky, he'll move on." But even as I said the words, the unsettling anticipation prickled against my skin, urging me to act. What if he was here for me? What if he was here for her, out to finish a mission I had unwittingly turned into a living nightmare? My past felt like a divine puppet master, pulling strings in the shadows I couldn't escape. Just then, the figure shifted, footsteps drawing nearer before they ceased, barely a breath away. I could sense another presence, an unexpected warmth brooding just behind him, the shadow of uncertainty whispering truths I didn't want to acknowledge. My heart raced, desperate for clarity in chaos, and I thought of the document, my fear manifesting from the shadows of my past. What if he's not alone? She murmured. "I don't know," I replied, my thoughts leaping with every pulse of uncertainty. What if he brought someone else with him? Before I could grasp the weight of that truth, another sound broke through the shroud of silence, a soft rustle, and then a voice, low and menacing. "I know you're there. This is tiresome. Hiding in the darkness." It was him. The chill in his voice struck like ice through my veins. My heart pounded with primal terror that threatened to drown me. There was no escape. We were cornered, and the candle of hope flickered precariously. "Try to be smart about this," he continued, the shadows almost intertwining with his words as if coaxing them to life. "I don't want to hurt you, but you've made this harder than necessary." My throat constricted, a lump forming as I swallowed hard. With every threat that dripped from his lips, my resolve wavered, the emotional storm inside me thrumming with unspoken fears. I wrestled with the instinct to flee, to save us both, but there was no distance between fear and hate, and the consequences of retreat seemed worse than remaining trapped at his will. The woman beside me was shaking now. "What do we do?" Her wide eyes reflected the encroaching dread, mirroring my own turmoil. She needed me to lead, yet I felt utterly lost in a labyrinth of shadows, a maze without an exit. "Just breathe," I said, drawing on the slip of courage that remained. "We need to wait for the right moment." He moved again then, his shadow flickering ominously across the soil where we crouched. The desperation of that moment twisted my gut. Was it truly bravery to remain hidden in fear, or an evasion of reality waiting to pounce? Suddenly, the light of a car's headlights illuminated our position, spilling warmth onto the cold ground. A miracle, perhaps, but with it came a warped sense of hope layered with dread. The last thing I wanted was attention. "Come out, now," he commanded, his tone darkening with impatience. I could feel her pulse racing beside me, each frantic beat resonating through our intertwined fingers. And then from the illuminated distance, an unexpected figure emerged, a silhouette against the headlights, someone I recognized. The flash of recognition sent shock coursing through my blood. It was Ethan, my childhood friend, the one person from my past who had a reason to know my mistakes and wouldn't judge me for them. "What are you doing here?" I gasped, a blend of surprise and confusion flooding my chest. "Get away from him!" Ethan shouted, racing toward us, his voice stark and powerful, and filled with a fierce protective energy. He approached like a warrior braving the night, exposing both himself and the hidden threat. My heart swelled with fierce gratitude amidst the chaos, but then panic bubbled again. "Stop!" I yelled, reaching to pull him back, but I was too late. I watched as Ethan barreled into the confrontation, a misplaced hero stepping right into the line of fire. "Not today," the figure hissed, the menace spilling from his lips, and just like that, the fragile bubble of hope shattered, morphing into visceral uncertainty. "Ethan!" I cried, despair clawing at me. "Run!" But the danger had multiplied in an instant, the darkness pressing in, blurring the lines between savior and victim, and as the confrontation erupted, my heart thudded with one shocking realization: my past wasn't merely following might, was threatening to drag everyone I loved down with me. And as the shadows swirled around us, uncertainty escalated with every breath. The truth I had hidden was about to spill over, and with it, the specter of my past would rise to unveil consequences I had never anticipated. In that moment, everything I had avoided swept closer: me secrets, our fates, entwined in an imminent, heartbreaking catastrophe. The night air trembled with raw tension as I watched Ethan confront the very shadow that threatened to eclipse our lives. My heart pounded erratically, torn between the instinct to scream for him to turn back and the desperate hope he could somehow defuse the situation. It was a battle of wills, a standoff against the haunting specter of my past, which was now rapidly closing in, more suffocating than ever. "Ethan!" I shouted again, panic lacing my voice. The words felt like screams against a void. As his reckless bravery surged like a tide toward danger, I could only stand rooted to the ground, the grim realization of how intertwined our fates had become clawing at my insides. "Enough games," the figure spat, his smile twisted in an insidious mix of triumph and malice. "You really think you can protect her? She's the one who put this all in motion." With a surge of adrenaline, I sprang forward, my breath quickening on the edge of desperation. "What do you want from us? Just leave us alone." My voice shook with authority I didn't feel. It was as if I were trying to convince myself as much as him. Ethan's gaze shifted to me, a flicker of uncertainty darting beneath his confidence. "It's okay, just focus on me." "We'll figure this out together," he said, determination brewing behind his blue eyes, but I could see the storm roiling just beneath the surface. The words felt meaningless against the looming darkness behind him, the embodiment of my fears, my mistakes, my deceptions. "Is that what you told her too?" the figure taunted, stepping forward, moving with the slow, deliberate menace of someone who enjoyed the game. "That you could protect her from the consequences? From the truth?" I felt the weight of his words pressing down on me, a suffocating heaviness that wrapped around my throat like a noose. "Shut up," I barked, the pain knotting my insides. "You don't know anything about us." "Oh, but I do," he continued, his voice low and chilling. "You've carried those secrets close, haven't you? Foolish girl, thinking you could clean a mess that can never be erased." It's time to show Ethan just how much he doesn't know. Ethan's expression darkened, confusion spiraling into apprehension as he glanced between us. "What are you talking about?" he asked, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of his confidence. "What do you mean? No!" I shouted, realization dawning upon me with the force of a wave. The chance to protect Ethan, to shield him from the ruins of my chronicle, now felt like slipping sand through my fingers. Ethan, you need to listen to me, but the figure had continued. She's not the person you think she is. To keep you in the dark, she's had to spin a web of deceit like a beautiful tapestry hanging in a gallery. Are you prepared to see the truth, Ethan? The strings tied to your naive trust? Stop! I cried, but dread knitted my stomach as his words echoed, resonating with a bitter familiarity. The truth was volatile and jagged, a treacherous maze that I had navigated for too long. The last thing I wanted was to lay the torment of my past at his feet. Ethan's brows furrowed in confusion while the shadows deepened around us. What are you talking about? He demanded, bewildered. The last remnant of courage clung to his voice, but I could see it fading, unraveling like the fragile threads of my secret life. For the heartbeat of an eternity, my world spun on the pin of reckoning. I could feel every gaze caught in the balance, his loyalty wavering beneath the weight of betrayal, and the monster lurking behind its mask reveling in the chaos he had wrought. I was never just your friend, Ethan, I finally forced out, the truth spilling from my lips in jagged whispers. I was working undercover. I had to know everything about your family's past. I couldn't let what happened before happen again. I am not here to be your savior. I'm here because I thought I could fix things. The silence that followed was deafening, wrapping around us like the thick fog that clung to the night. Ethan's gaze was a mixture of shock and fury, emotions swirling like a tempest brewing on the horizon. I could feel his hurt pierce through me like a blade, each cut an agonizing reminder of my choices. Fix things? He questioned, disbelief etched into every word. You lied to me? You put us both in danger, and you think you can just fix things? The figure laughed, a twisted sound as it slashed through the fragile string of hope tethering us together. See? The truth always comes out in the end. You're just a cleaner. A mop? Dealing with dirt you can't possibly hope to wash away. I wanted to scream, to beg Ethan to understand, but as the weight of my confession settled over us, I saw the flicker of trust dim in his eyes, snuffed like a candle threatened by the wind. "I'm just trying to save you," I whispered, though I knew the words sounded empty against the tide of betrayal. And then, as if the universe conspired to drive a wedge deeper between us, a sound erupted from the distancia, a low growl, the sound of an approaching engine roaring into the night. My heart leaped into my throat. More players on the board, the figure taunted with a wicked grin, the shadows licking the ground around him. And the game has only just begun. What I had tried to hide was about to explode into unrelenting chaos. I turned to Ethan, and in that look, the cracks of our bond widened, every hope of trust under siege as I felt the world around us pivot dangerously closer to the edge. Then, as the headlights drew nearer, illuminating the terrain in stark clarity, I realized with horror that the car was not a friendly beacon. It belonged to those who shared my past, and they would come searching for answers for me. As the figure slipped into the night, leaving us on the precipice of an abyss fraught with uncertainty, I felt the threads of my life unravel, the looming thread trailing behind me like the remnants of a shattered approach to what it meant to find sanctuary in someone else. My heart thudded with one crushing thought: what if the truth was the very destruction I had fought to avoid? The headlights washed over us, revealing the chaos of the impending storm. Tension crackled in the air like thunder, a harsh reminder of the fragile state of our relationship. Ethan's expression morphed, disbelief fighting with anger, as he comprehended the implications of my words. The weight of my confession pressed down on both of us, heavier than any threat that loomed in the shadows. "Why didn't you just tell me?" he finally managed, each word delivered like a punch to my gut. I could feel the desperation pooling in my chest, thick and suffocating. "I thought it would protect you." It was the truth, though it sounded flimsy even as I spoke it. "I thought what? That lying was the way to protect the people you care about?" Ethan shot back, his voice rising above the chaos. igniting a fire that flickered behind his blue gaze. "You were supposed to be on my side." "I was," I protested, feeling the tears well up as my heart threatened to shatter. But when I started to feel I faltered, every admission pulling me beneath a tidal wave of regret. When I started to feel like part of your life, I couldn't let go of the mission. I thought I could keep you safe by staying in the shadows. How safe do I feel right now?" Ethan's voice was a mixture of bitterness and incredulity. "You've painted a target on our backs with your secrets." The engine roared closer, a monstrous beast in the night that taunted our unraveling bond. I turned away, feeling the heat of shame mingle with a rising tide of fear. The specter that had come to haunt us was no longer just a figment of my imagination. It was real, tangible, and dangerous. "Please," I breathed, my voice raw as I struggled to maintain control. "I need you to trust me. We have to get out of here." But as I looked back, Ethan's deep-set eyes searched my face, aching with a myriad of emotion: betrayal, love, confusion. In a single heartbeat, our connection teetered on the edge, and I knew that to ask for his trust now felt like demanding the impossible. A blaring horn sliced through the tension, and finally, the vehicle skidded to a halt just 20 feet away. The doors swung open, and two shadowy figures emerged, their intentions cloaked in the night as their malice glimmered with a palpable aura. "Celia," the taller one called, voice grating like nails on a chalkboard. "You can't keep running. We need to talk about this mess you've made." Ethan's body went rigid beside me, perception like a tactical machine processing every shift in the air. "Who are they?" he asked, and in that moment, his voice was colder than I had ever heard it. A wall was rising, fortified by a betrayal that seeped into the marrow of my bones. My mind raced, scrambling for words that would free us from the impending doom, but the realization blazed in as brightly as the headlights, casting shadows across our faces. "They're there from my past. Some of the people I thought I left behind." "Some?" Ethan echoed, his brow furrowing in disbelief and dismay. "You didn't think this was worth mentioning? They're not here to save me, Ethan," I pleaded, stepping closer to him, pushing against the encroaching darkness. "They're here to drag me back into a life I'm terrified of." "I thought I was done with them." "Then let's run." His determination ignited a flicker of hope, vibrant yet unstable. But as the figures advanced, their features sharpening into focus, I watched as Ethan's resolve faded like the flicker of a dying flame. They weren't just shadows of my past. They knew the truth. "Running isn't an option," the woman said, a predatory gleam in her eyes that shattered any flicker of safety. "Not now that you've opened the door." Behind them, branches rustled ominously, as if the very woods were conspiring against our escape. Every instinct screamed at me to flee to safety, but Ethan's eyes, a blend of fear and defiance, anchored me like lead. "No matter what they say," I began, voice trembling, "you have to trust me." But in that moment, I knew that trust had become another casualty of my mistake. They were closing in, growing more tangible and threatening, and with the horizon barren of any hope, I felt lost in the swirling mists of betrayal and regret. Then, just as I thought despair had fully claimed us, the air shifted and unexpected kindness crackled through the night. Without warning, a figure emerged from the woods behind the car, moving with a stealth that suggested a purpose beyond our reckoning. "Celia!" they shouted, and as the shadows parted, my heart dropped into a pit of dread. It was Alex, the one friend who hadn't turned his back on me, but in this tangled mess, his arrival felt anything but fortifying. There was a wild desperation in his eyes, a sense of urgency driven by the turmoil surrounding us. "We don't have time. You're in grave danger." Ethan's eyes darted back and forth between Alex and the advancing figures. "What's happening?" "Trust me." Alex's voice was a shrill whistle cutting through the static of confusion. "We need to move, now. They're not just here for her, they're coming for you too." In that moment, The fabric of our reality shifted violently, and I realized with a stricken heart that the storm I feared was just beginning to break. With my secrets trailing in shadows, and time slipping away faster than I could grasp it, I faced Ethan vulnerable and raw, searching for a sign that amidst the chaos, he could still find a trace of what we once had. The headlights flickered ominously, the darkness closing in like the arms of a ravenous beast hungering for resolution. Closure was an illusion now, and as the truth encroached, I was left with one soul-crushing thought: what if this was the moment that forever severed the last thread connecting us? Before I could say a word, another crash echoed from the foliage, and without warning, everything cascaded into chaos, a heart-wrenching storm of uncertainty waiting to tear us apart. The echoes of chaos reverberated through the trees, sending a shiver down my spine. I turned to Ethan, but the fire in his gaze had dimmed, replaced with uncertainty and haunting questions that sliced through me like winter's chill. The world felt heavy, pressing against my chest, as if it conspired to crush the last remnants of hope. "Please, Ethan," I murmured, desperation thickening my voice. "I know it seems impossible now, but if we can just stick together, together?" His laughter was bitter, laced with disbelief. "You've been living a lie from the beginning. How can we possibly stick together when all you've done is lie and hide?" Before I could respond, the woman who had called my name stepped closer, draped in shadows, with an air of authority that demanded attention. "Celia," she said, her voice both melodic and menacing, "the longer you stay with him, the worse it becomes for both of you. We're not the enemy. We're here to help you remember who you really are." I wanted to recoil from her, the words slicing through the air, but I stood paralyzed, cloaked in shame. "Who I really am," I repeated, each syllable heavy with self-loathing. "Is that all? I am a puppet of your making? What did you think this was going to be?" Her eyes glittered, dark depths revealing a steely resolve. "A fairy tale? You were born into this life, and it's time you accepted that. No." The word burst from my lips, a primal scream that broke through the weight of resignation. "I refuse to go back to that. I refuse to let you take me back." Beneath the tension, I felt Ethan's presence shifting, an anchor that had begun to waver. My heart raced in tandem with the staccato thuds of my pulse, slick with the reality that he was inching away, drawn by the gravity of his confusion and rising anger. "Celia," Alex urged, his voice urgent, "we need to leave. Now. Before they decide that talking is overrated." "Leave?" The word echoed, lost in a sea of disbelief. "And go where? How can I leave when they hold all the cards?" "They don't," Alex countered, a fierce resolve in his voice. "You do, but you need to trust us." Trust, the very thing I had shattered, rendering it irreplaceable. How could I possibly ask Ethan for that amidst the chaos, when he was the one standing by my side, while I laid bare my soul, riddled with the lies woven across the tapestry of our relationship? As I hesitated, the woman from my past stepped closer, her expression shifting to one of mild annoyance. "You think you can run forever? They are not just after you. They are tied to him now, too. He's a liability." Ethan's brow furrowed deeply, and for a flickering moment, the torment left his face. He turned to me, searching. "Celia, is this true? Did you really drag me into your mess?" "No," I shouted, my voice cracking with the weight of my emotions. "I tried to keep you away." "I thought you thought wrong," he retorted, anger fueling his desperation. "You thought you could just hide the truth, and that I'd be fine with whatever would be left?" The world slipped into a suffocating silence. Far in the distance, the storm continued its relentless growl, while the figures from my past loomed closer, asserting their claim on my turbulent life. But there, in the depths of his eyes, lay something I had feared losing, moss, a glimmer of understanding, mingled with uncertainty. Just before the fragile moment tightened to a breaking point, I caught a glimpse of hope swathed in darkness. We were both victims in a game that had escalated far beyond our control. "Ethan," I breathed, desperation clawing at my throat, "I have never meant to put you in danger." Everything I did it was to before I could finish. The woman lunged forward, and in a swift movement that felt slow as molasses, she reached out for Ethan. A predatory grin danced on her lips. "You're the key, you know. If we bring him back with you, you can reclaim your place. All you have to do is come with us.no." I screamed, fear clenching around my heart like a vice. "You can't take him. You don't get to decide what happens to him." But her cold, calculating gaze pierced through the fog of my fight-or-flight instinct. I felt the tremor of reality shattering around us, the tendrils of conflict wrapping tighter around the precipice of our relationship. "Come on, Celia. The choice is simple. Just remember who you are, and we can protect him enough." Ethan's voice rang out, cutting through the tension like clear glass. "This has to end now. I won't become a pawn in your game." In that moment, something shifted in the air, an electrifying certainty slicing through the chaos. My heart thudded against my ribs as Ethan's gaze locked onto mine, grounding me in a moment of clarity. "Celia," he said, vulnerable yet fierce, "no matter what, I won't let you go. But I need to know you'll fight for yourself too. Or it'll be too late for both of us." Hope surged in my veins only to be met with a new, unforeseen dread. Should I reveal everything, let the truth spill forth like an unholy tide? Or would dragging him further into the suffocating depths of my reality extinguish the last flicker of light we shared? Just as I opened my mouth to speak, a thunderous crash erupted behind us, splintering the night, and everything descended into chaos once more. The shadows surged toward us, and in that blinding moment, I was left with my heartbeat raging louder than the storm. Whether I chose to abandon the haunting echoes of guilt or embrace the visceral authenticity of our unraveling connection, time slipped away like grains of sand through our fingers. And in the eye of that tempest, I realized that every choice we made could tear us apart forever together, intertwine our fates in a way I could never have foreseen. But as the urgency seeped into my bones, I knew I had to make a decision, and it needed to be made before the storm consumed us whole. The storm raged like a beast unchained, thrashing against the ancient trees, each gust of wind carrying with it the anguished cries of our hearts. The echoes of thunder drowned out the world around us, but in the midst of it all, I clung tightly to the frail thread of courage threaded between Ethan and me. I could sense the ground trembling beneath us, but it was the weight of uncertainty that rooted me in place. "Celia, we have to go," Alex shouted over the cacophony, his eyes wide with urgency. I could see the shadows swirling behind him, their intentions dark and threatening. "Please trust me, you'll figure this out." But trust felt slippery now, a concept tainted by truths I had concealed like poison in my veins. Fear gnawed at the edges of my resolve. Yet, it was Ethan's desperate gaze that tethered my thoughts, pulling me back from the brink of despair. "I won't leave you," I whispered, barely audible against the storm's roar. The words tasted bitter, but they were a promise I was willing to risk everything for. Before I could gather myself to make my next move, the woman from my past, her lips twisted in a cruel smile, lunged forward, brushing past the shadows. "You have no idea what you're messing with, Celia. This is bigger than you and him. You can't save him, and you can't save yourself." Her words struck like shards of glass, slicing into my heart as I braced against the emotional cascade. "You think I'm scared of your threats?" I challenged, biting back the tremor in my voice. "You don't get to dictate my fate. None of us are pawns." Ethan's hand sought mine, grounding me, yet through the bond of our fingers, I felt the tension crackle. "Celia, this isn't just about us anymore," he murmured, tightening his grip. "Whatever is happening here, it's far worse than we imagined." Moments ticked by like heavy raindrops, and I realized the truth of his words. Whatever I had been part of and whatever world I had been born into had taken its toll on our lives. Just as I was about to delve into the depths of my past to bear the burden of lies I had created, a scream pierced through the storm. "Run!" Alex shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos, yet it felt like he was commanding the very winds that howled around us. In that instant, instinct kicked in. I turned toward Ethan, now wrapped in a cocoon of anxiety. We have to find a way out. Somehow, we need to escape this. I started to think of options, but the shadows advanced closer, creeping like smoke or perhaps some malevolent essence hungry for the fear it feasted on. Suddenly, another violent crash interrupted the thoughts racing through my mind, and as I spun around, debris flew through the air. A figure emerged from the smoke, cloaked in chaos, moving toward us with deliberate intent. "Everything is about to change," the woman cried, a manic energy suffusing her presence. "You think you can defy your fate? You hold the power, Celia, more than you realize. Accept it." The weight of her words slammed into me, heavy with a foreboding that felt almost tangible. Power? The very concept sent a chill down my spine, memories of a world I had tried so hard to forget swirling like autumn leaves around me. Power had taken away everything I loved, and now it threatened to snatch away the only light left tethering me to reality. "Enough of this," Ethan shouted, stepping protectively in front of me. "Whatever you want to do, it ends here. You won't take her." For an instant, everything hung in the balance, a shimmering thread of hope countered by the abyss of fear. I felt the throbbing connection we shared, battling physics and fate with pure emotion. And then, before I could grasp the ramifications, the darkness spilled forth, revealing the mumbling collective of once lost figures from my life, faces I feared I had abandoned in the shadows of my memory. "Celia!" they cried, a chorus of hearts haunted by betrayal, overshadowing the tumult around us. "You can't run from who you are. Join us." The fear in Ethan's eyes mirrored my own, a tempest of emotion that almost toppled my resolve. "This isn't where you belong," he yelled, his voice hoarse. "Fight it, Celia. You've fought so hard to be free." In that electrifying moment, a spark flickered within me. It was stifled, yet it pulsed with a rhythm of fury. I was tired of running. I was tired of hiding from a truth that suffocated me. As I opened my mouth to reclaim my voice, a weapon I had learned to wield through scrutiny and disbelief, another crash reverberated through the forest, and just when I thought strength would finally pulse through my veins, a blinding light illuminated the chaotic scene, swallowing us whole. Time seemed to freeze as silhouettes danced in the brilliant glare. My world darkened, and as I reached for Ethan, the last thing I felt was the warmth of his hand slipping from mine. I awoke disoriented and crumpled among the fallen leaves, the storm now mere whispers in my ears. As I struggled to gather my bearings, the weight of confusion washed over me. But amidst the wreckage, I caught the glimmer of shadowed figures surrounding me, a broken mirror reflecting fractured pieces of my life, and the truth that rose anew. Ethan was gone. A terrifying realization swept through me, colder than the storm itself. The stakes had shifted in ways I had never fathomed, and as fear thrummed through my body, accompanied by the dread of looming shadows, a horrifying truth settled into the silence. I had forever altered the course of our lives, yet the path I stood upon, remote as it was now, fractured my heart into pieces I couldn't begin to understand. The air was heavy as I struggled to sit up, shadows creeping around me like tendrils of darkness. Panic clawed at my insides, heart racing as I scanned the surroundings, searching for any sign of Ethan. The memory of his hand slipping from mine rang like a bell, echoing in my mind with relentless urgency. "Ethan!" I cried out, the sound raw and desperate, but my voice was swallowed by the lingering silence, hung thick in the damp air. I pushed myself to my feet, unsteady, reality crashing down as dread pulled in the pit of my stomach. Where was he? I took a shaky step forward, heart racing, fighting against the encroaching shadows that seemed to loom larger with each pulse of hope that flickered within my chest. My mind was flooded with thought, the tangled web of lies I wove, the choices I made, and the darker corners of my life that had cast a long shadow over everything and everyone I loved. A haunting realization swept over me. Perhaps I had doomed us both. The ache grew sharper as I recalled the faces of those who had been a part of this journey, the warmth of friendship intertwined with the cold grip of betrayal. Whispers echoed in the void, a chorus of old fears and regrets that wrapped around me like chains, threatening to pull me back into the abyss. "Celia!" A voice broke through the haze, and I turned, heart racing. It was Alex, his silhouette made vivid by the low light. He emerged from the corner of my vision, urgency in his stride, breathless and wild. "We need to go." "Go where?" The words tumbled from my lips, the panic amplifying with every heartbeat. "What happened to Ethan? Where is he?" I felt the cracks in my composure spiderweb across my chest, threatening to shatter me. "They took him," Alex stated, as if the words alone could alleviate the enormity of the situation. "I didn't see them coming. I tried to stop them, but it was chaos. They grabbed him." I stumbled backward, the ground beneath me a suffocating grip as the truth sunk in. "No." It was a whisper, a feeble attempt at denial. "No, no, no." My mind raced, replaying every moment of vulnerability, every hidden truth, every choice that had led to this. Had my secrets truly put him at such peril, or had fate entwined our lives too strongly to be torn apart? "We can't stay here," Alex pressed, his urgency snapping me out of the spiral threatening to consume me whole. "I know it feels impossible, but we need to find a way to break through this, especially now that they're after you. We can't let them take anyone else." The fire in his voice ignited something deep inside of me, a furious determination that surged through my veins. "No," I said with conviction, my gaze fierce, fighting against the tide of despair. "I won't let this be the end. Ethan is still out there, and I will find him." "Celia, I'm not asking for permission," I interrupted, a spark of defiance lighting my spirit. "We're going to find a way to get him back." With renewed purpose, I swept my gaze across our surroundings, searching for anything we could use. The path ahead was uncertain, shrouded in darkness, but I felt a light flicker within me. "Think, Celia," I urged, pressing my fingers against my temples. "What do I know? Where would they take him? They wouldn't just vanish into thin air." Suddenly, clarity struck with a resounding force. "The old warehouse," I breathed, as if an invisible string had pulled the thought into the forefront of my mind. "I can't believe I didn't realize it before. It's where everything started, the connection between my family and theirs. If he's been taken, that's where they'd want him." Alex's eyes widened, the glimmer of hope reflected like a beacon. "Then that's where we go. But we need to be smart about this. We can't charge in blindly." "Agreed," I nodded, heartbeat sinking with a surge of purpose. In the shadows, the darkness seemed to curl around us but couldn't snuff out the dying embers of hope. "Let's move." As we stepped into the dense underbrush, each footfall resonated with determination, leading us toward the remnants of my past and the uncertainty of the future. I could feel the collective weight of my decisions pushing against me, but amidst that intoxication of dread, clarity arose. I had to confront my fears. I had to fight for Ethan, fight for redemption threaded through our intertwined fates. The air thickened with tension as we drew closer to the warehouse, shadows dancing eerily in the dim light filtering through cracked windows. I could feel the weight of every choice. I had birthed a past riddled with mistakes that now beckoned like moths to a flame. But there was no turning back now. My resolve steeled as I realized some power lay in embracing the threads of my story, including the ones that were ugly and raw. "Stick close," I whispered to Alex, trembling anticipation pulsing beneath the surface of my skin. From the side of the building, I caught sight of movement, dark shapes shifting in and out of the shadows, a stark reminder of the threat that loomed. They were waiting, plotting, and I swallowed hard, the bitter truth tearing at the fabric of my courage. Yet, Fueled by urgency, I surged forward with purpose. We crept around the edges of the warehouse, heartbeats thrumming in synchronous urgency. The lingering fear of discovery threatened to suffocate me, shadows caressing my resolve. But with every stride, I felt the tendrils of hope entwining tighter around my heart, inching me closer toward a confrontation that might reclaim everything I had lost. As we rounded another corner, harsh whispers washed over me from within the building, blending with the echo of my pistoning heartbeat. I leaned closer, straining to listen, soul aching with anticipation. What was being said? What dark designs lay hidden within those walls? Find her, a low, threatening voice rumbled, sending an icy shiver down my spine. If she won't join us willingly, we'll show her the consequences of her defiance. Baw rose in my throat, anger simmering just beneath the surface. They wouldn't take him without a fight. I steeled myself, ready to lash out against the tide of fate that had threatened to overpower me for too long. "We'll create a diversion," I whispered to Alex, who nodded, determination igniting in his eyes. "When I say go, we'll draw them out. If we can create enough chaos, we can slip inside. Ethan will be waiting for us." The plan formed in unison, allowing fear to seep into resolve, granting us a moment of rebellious courage against the oncoming darkness. We moved into position, breath steadying as we prepared for the impending storm. The voices grew louder, more fervent, drowning out our anxious hearts. And then, with a deep breath, I shouted with all my might, "Ethan!" The sound echoed against the walls, slicing through the air. Silence fell momentarily, brittle branches entwining the energy between defiance and vulnerability. I could feel the weight of the moment, the delicious taste of bravery shattering the tepid bond of fear. "Celia!" The voice came in a sudden rush, propelled by longing and confusion. "Get out of here!" But I couldn't run this time, and I wouldn't leave him behind. My past could no longer shackle me in chains. I had to embrace it, face it, and reclaim everything that had been taken from me. Go! I shouted again, my voice echoing with the resonance of purpose. "I won't let them take you." At that moment, everything shifted as shadows spilled from the entrance of the warehouse, forming a menacing wall of danger. "There she is!" A voice roared, anger and surprise coiling around us like vines desperate to suffocate. "Run!" I urged Alex, fear battling with the fire of hope as we tore through the chaos, dodging grasping hands stretching toward us like hungry shadows. We charged forward, weaving through the encroaching mass, only to be met by the relentless, determined figures that were fueled by the past I had hidden for so long. Behind me, the urgency surged as I sensed Ethan fighting against them, his voice strained with a mix of strength and desperation. But I wouldn't let them silence him. "Not this time. Keep moving!" I yelled, an almost primal scream that vibrated through the fabric of the night, adrenaline surging within. Just as we drew closer, I spotted Ethan. He was held by the caught in the tangle of shadows, determined to consume him whole. My heart raced as I surged forward, desperation flooding every inch of my being, and with a fierce scream that shattered the chaos, I lunged through the grasping figures, desperate to break the final bond tethering us to fear. "Ethan!" I cried, panic igniting within me. His eyes locked onto mine, and in that fragile moment, the weight of the world slipped away, laying bare the raw truth. With strength fueled by determination, I broke through the suffocating grip of shadow, hand extending toward him, as the world slowed momentarily. The shadows twisted, wanting to consume us, but it was our joint destinies that would break their stranglehold. "Celia!" he rasped, fighting against the grasping hands, but it was my own that reached, pulling him toward a flickering glimmer of hope beyond darkness. Our fingers intertwined, the bond of heart and spirit shattering the hold, suffocating us. Together, we ran, darting through the chaos, lights flashing, shadows growing desperate behind us. The world may have sought to tear us apart, but in that blur of movement, running toward the light, I felt the rawness of acceptance deep within, a power to confront, embrace, and forgive, intertwining in a bittersweet dance of hope. With a final sprint, we burst from the warehouse into the cool air, breaths coming in ragged pulls, the taste of freedom mingling with remnants of fear and hope freshly drawn from the abyss. We stumbled to a halt, light spilling over us like a warm embrace. And as I caught my breath, I looked into Ethan's weary eyes, raw and conflicted, yet shimmering with a spark of something that felt like redemption. What just happened?" he asked, disbelief still threading through his voice. But then it softened as he stepped closer, brows furrowing. "Celia, you put yourself in danger for me and faced them. You fought for us." And in that moment, beneath the uncertainty and chaos, I felt a stream of warmth pulse between USA connection that defied the bonds of the past. "I fought for us," I affirmed, my heart echoing the truth I had long shunned. "And I want us to be free from this together. I need you to trust me even now." Ethan hesitated, watching me with a blend of curiosity and caution, but beneath it all, the deep undercurrent of love thrummed in the space between us. "How after everything can I still trust you? Because together, we can rewrite our story. Let me show you who I am now, the truth that lies ahead," I implored, and for the first time, I sensed understanding glimmering in the depths of his gaze. We held one another's stares, heartbeats racing in synchrony, realizing that we had a choice of power to reclaim our lives, to rewrite the damage of the past, and to craft a future anew, free from fear and the weight of old shadows. As I stepped closer, vulnerability and courage mingling in the spaces between, I took his hands in mine. "Together, we will break the chains and reclaim what's been lost." With resolve coursing through our veins, we could feel the darkness retreating, and as we turned away from the shadows, not only reclaiming the life we had fought for, but embracing a truth woven in forgiveness, acceptance, and the power of love illuminated it, was a new beginning basked in the light of hope. Ethan smiled through the glistening remnants of confusion. In that moment, staring into the depths of each other's souls, we forged a connection that would carry us through every shadow, a bond of resilience rising anew. And as I gazed at him, a fierce determination ignited in my chest. Whatever paths lay ahead, which twists and turns, and darkness awaited, I was ready to face it all side by side, because together, we held the strength to rewrite our story. Through the storm of uncertainty, I realized the ultimate truth. The light of love was not bound by shadows or deceit. It was woven through every triumph and challenge. As we stood in the remnants of our past, watching the horizon extend before us, hand in hand, I allowed the warmth of that truth to wash over. May a power deeper than fear, entrenched in a chance to embrace the beauty of second chances, and for the first time, I felt the stirrings of hope reflected in the eyes of the person who meant the most, the strength to rise, heart brimming with the knowledge that no darkness could extinguish what was forged in love. "We won't look back," I whispered, pulling him closer. "Not again." And as the sun began to rise on the horizon, I knew at that moment, dawn had broken through the veil of night, illuminating the path toward a brighter future waiting for us both. Together, we would gather strength in the light, reclaiming our truth through courage and love, and finally facing the world free of the shadows that sought to tear us apart. And in that embrace, I realized, sometimes the most powerful resolution lies in the bravery to choose to love while embracing our own truths, reminding us that every ending could indeed be a new beginning.